Hello, and welcome to the Still to Be Determined podcast. This is the podcast that follows up on topics from the YouTube channel Undecided with Matt Farrell. I am Sean Farrell. Don't confuse my voice with his voice. They may be similar. That laughter you heard was from Matthew Farrell. Matt, you want to say hi?
Hello, everybody.
I am Matt's brother, and I'm a writer, and Matt is a web developer, a user interface designer, and the host of the YouTube channel Undecided. He takes a look at tech and its impact on our lives. And this episode of the podcast is going to be focusing in on his January 21st, 2020 episode, which focused on Apple Watch and the future of wearable technology in healthcare, which is an interesting and very narrow focus for your episode.
Yeah.
It's a lot of your videos seem to focus on big picture, big developments. This was very personal, obviously.
Yes.
Because you discussed in the video the impact of Apple Watch devices, not only for you, but for a family member who the Apple Watch signaled that there was a health concern that took them to the hospital. And it, in fact, did help, set off an alarm to a problem that was a bigger issue.
Yes.
And then for yourself, you had a similar experience where you had a health issue. Then in looking back at the Apple Watch features to monitor your health, you can see the very thing that the doctor diagnosed you with.
Yes.
You've had other medical conditions through your life. Everybody does. Do you find that your response to this new circumstance feels different because the technology is present?
Yes, it does to me, yes.
It gives you a sense of assurance in some way, or?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, specifically, when I was told that, I have this congenital heart thing that's going on with WPW, my doctor and I opted not to do the surgery that would correct it for right now. Right. And just having my Apple Watch and knowing anytime I can take an EKG and see what my heart is doing, and if I feel one of those heart racing moments, I can do the same thing. It's kind of given me a little bit of a peace of mind, knowing that I have something on me 24 hours a day that I can very quickly keep tabs as to what my heart is doing.
Right.
And that's part of the reason I got super excited when I started looking more and more into this tech. And also when I got diagnosed with it, I ended up wearing a heart monitor for a full month. Mm-hmm. That had these electrodes all over my chest, which was a interesting experience. But it was, at the same time, I had this amazing, I had this amazement of, wow, this is really cool that this medical tech exists where I can have these electrodes on me 24 hours a day, and it's using a cell signal to send real-time data back to some kind of central location so they can monitor my heart in real time for this month. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, it was but this thing is so big and clunky and it's really awkward to deal with. And it was there's got to be something better than this. And so it was amazement and dissatisfaction at the same time. So it was kind of all of that kind of made me want to dig into this more. Right.
I had a medical test done recently, which included monitors that had to be attached to my body. And they used, it's the most disgusting gel sticky pads.
Yes.
And
getting it off.
It feels a little bit like somebody's adding extra flesh to your body.
Yes.
And then getting them off was an adventure. Yeah. And it was it's stuck to my body, and now it's stuck to my finger, and now it's stuck to my other finger, and now it's stuck to my thumb. And really standing in a room with electrodes stuck to my fingers, trying to shake them off. And in the meantime, there's a computer nearby that is showing all the readings, and it's reading all sorts of signals and body signals and measuring all sorts of things going on in my body with this high-tech interface. And I'm standing there with what feels like boogers all over my... And I'm thinking, this is the future. This is where we are now.
Oh, gross.
So it's interesting that it's the sense of assurance that you might have gotten from this experience that wouldn't have been present with other times in your life, and it makes me wonder about next steps. As you were talking, I, in my head, had memories of the wearable alert button that they designed when we were kids, and there was the "I've fallen and can't get up" commercials, which were widely mocked. But it seems to me like, does the Apple Watch have a feature, or do any of these devices have a feature which is effectively a rapid hit, just "I need help"?
Yeah, that's the coolest. I didn't talk about it in the video, but the Apple Watch has a feature where it can detect if you've fallen down.
Oh, really?
And and if it detects you've fallen down, it gets an alert and tries to get your attention to either dismiss it, say I'm okay, or call for help. And if you don't respond, or if there's not enough movement within a certain period of time, it will automatically call emergency services for you. And if you put into your phone emergency contacts, it will also contact those people that you've fallen down. And I had somebody comment on the video saying that happened to them personally, where they're something was going on with their heart and with their heartbeat, and it automatically contacted their emergency contacts to let them know that they were having an issue. So it really is kind of an evolution of that old technology of "I've fallen down and I can't get up," except now it does it all for you and takes care of you completely. Yeah. It's one of those, I would love to get this for mom and dad.
Yeah.
but they tend to turn off their iPhones when they're not using them. So I don't think they'd get into the
save
technology.
that battery power. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. My favorite story with that was the time I was trying to pick them up at the airport, and I live in New York City. So I was going to JFK, which is one of the most aggressively congested driving experiences you can have. And there's a loop around the gates. So you can just keep driving in that loop until the person that you're trying to pick up is there. So rather than try and find a spot and just sit there, because they have signs everywhere that are like, "This is for drop off and pick up only. Do not park here." So I'm doing the loop, and I'm doing the loop, and I'm doing the loop, and I keep going into, like when I would have an opportunity to quickly pull over for a moment, I would look at my phone and I would text mom and be like, "Are you here?" And then I would start driving in the loop and driving in the loop and driving in the loop. And I must have gone around the loop 8-9 times when I finally spotted mom and dad off in behind a large pillar. So they may have been there. Yeah, they may have been there for a while. And I think they were staying there to get out of the sun. It also kept them out of view. And so I pulled over and I said, "Yeah, I've been texting you. Do you not have your phone?" And mom proudly said, "Oh, we've got our phone. They're packed in the luggage."
Ladies and gentlemen, our parents.
And I was left with, all right, get in the car. No, I'm not mad. I'm not mad. Just get in the car. No, it's fine. You talked about the automatic features of the Apple Watch and sort of a much higher tech modern version of the medical alert sensors that we had introduced when we were kids. And I remember our grandmother had one.
Yes.
And I remember one of the big things for her was the sense of embarrassment around, first of all, just having it, but also the idea of using it was a sensitive subject for her. And it seems to me like this automatic feature would actually remove a lot of the sense of embarrassment, because first of all, from a physical perspective, it just looks like a watch.
Yep.
But then if it's doing things automatically, it gives that sense of, it doesn't matter if you're embarrassed or not. You fell down. You fell down.
Computer doing it. Yeah.
And you fell down. And if you don't have the ability to tell the watch, no, I'm okay, then any sense of embarrassment is just taken out of the window. It's taken out of the equation. So that seems like a really good feature.
That medical alert thing, it was going to like a dispatcher. So it was like, it's a non-family member is getting alerted that you have a problem and calls you and tries to do everything for you. And there's probably that plays into that level of embarrassment of involving strangers into this whole situation that may turn out to be nothing.
Yeah.
But if it's the type of thing that's just calling your son directly, it kind of removes that.
Yeah. And I remember with grandma, there was the real sense of not wanting to be a bother.
Yes.
And it was like, well, if you fall down and break your hip, that's not a bother.
Yeah.
And so removing any sense of, the emotional embarrassment or the emotional impact seems like a really positive step. Mm-hmm. And I think about when we were kids, we lived next door to a woman who her husband passed away, and then she lived alone in a very large house for a number of years. And there were some medical scares that nobody knew about because she was by herself. It was one of those sad situations where when she did finally get the help she needed, it was probably a bit too late. And her health had been impacted severely by being alone and nobody knowing that she was struggling with certain things. So
yeah,
tech like this seems like it's potentially going to be able to monitor more and more. And one of the comments that I spotted in your from your viewers was from, and again, I am, for the length of this podcast, whenever I read usernames, it's a combination of people coming up with, funny little monikers for themselves. So sometimes I might say something that sounds kind of strange for that reason. But then the other one is people with names that are distinct and unique, and I am doing my best to try and figure out how to pronounce them. So I apologize ahead of time to anybody if I actually mangle your name. And as somebody whose name is Sean Farrell, and it has been pronounced Sean Farrell for my entire life by people who apparently have never seen the Irish spelling of the word Sean, I completely understand the special nuances of having a name which is mispronounced. The first comment that caught my eye was from Dennis Schlackow, who wrote, "Matt, I'd love to see blood pressure monitoring added to the Apple Watch. I didn't think it was possible till you mentioned that one company that has already developed a watch-size wearable blood pressure monitor," which I think is fascinating. And that got me thinking about snoring and sleep monitoring. And I know that I had an app on my phone that I was trying to use to track sleep patterns for myself. And the biggest issue for it was that the instructions were put the phone on your bed.
Yeah.
And I was just like, no, I'm not going to do that. Like,
yeah.
What if I kick it off? What if I, sweep it off with my hand or something like that? But also just the idea of having your phone on your bed, I'm like, that's not convenient. That doesn't sound right. But it feels like the Apple Watch, if you're inclined to wear your watch 24 hours a day, it seems like sleep monitoring and even snore monitoring could be something that would be a feature that the watch could do.
Oh, absolutely. Especially that now that they're doing, like with the Series 4 and Series 5, they have that noise app. It's like they could monitor even for the noise in your environment to try to track snoring, like you're mentioning. So it's like taking your heart rate, tossing and turning, and also your noise level could all play a role in sleep monitoring. And there are sleep tracking apps that tap into the Apple Watch already. Mm-hmm. And there's also interesting tech that has nothing to do with the watch that, in fact, I use one. It's a bed pad that you just, like a bed sheet that you put on underneath your bed sheets on top of your mattress. And it's got a built-in sensor across it, and it tracks your sleep into it. So it's like, I don't have to wear anything.
That's remarkable.
But it tracks when my wife and I both go to bed. It tracks how our sleep was when we woke up and got out of bed. So in the next day you can see, I got up 2 times in the middle of the night, or, I woke up around 3 o'clock in the morning and fell back asleep around 4, and it gives you a sleep rating, and even tracks temperature and stuff like that in your bed. So it can tell you, like, your bed was too warm, you need to cool it down.
Right.
Or you were too hot. It can let you know what's off that might be affecting your sleep.
And what is it? It's not using sound. It would be using pressure and temperature, and
it's using just electrodes. So it's just tracking movements and pressure, I think, is what it's basically doing. It's very cool. It works pretty well. That's
fascinating. And as far as the snoring would be concerned, it would be interesting if there was the ability to also recognize apnea.
Yeah.
Because that's the big culprit. The snoring is an annoyance, but the apnea is a health risk. So
Yeah.
I also spotted this one, which connects with something you said earlier. It's from John Burns, and thank you for having a name that
it's easy to pronounce.
It's easy to pronounce, unless, of course, it's all silent, and I just don't know that. John wrote, Matt, this is an excellent video, and I'd love to see more of the same, more in a similar vein. My in-laws are in their 80s, 85 and 87. Mentally fine, but as you'd expect, the original equipment has a bit of wear. I wonder if you would consider doing a regular bit on how we might use tech to monitor our aging parents and loved ones. I realize that there is technology available, e.g. the Echoes show, that affords the ability to drop in and do video chats. This is good, but we could use more help, and I've learned over the years that when I think of something, there's usually nothing unique about my thought or circumstances. Entirely likely that others are in the same predicament my wife and I are in.
Right.
It's like, as you and I get older, we will probably be embracing technology far more easily than our parents. Our parents don't view the technology in the same way. And you mentioned you'd love to give Apple Watches to mom and dad, and I can just imagine dad sitting there and looking at it and thinking, what do I do with this?
Yeah.
I could see mom cooing over it while still unaware of what she might do with it. But dad in particular would be inclined to say, like, I just don't know what I would do with this.
He'd leave it in the box and put it in the closet and forget about it.
Yeah. And so there is a steep learning curve to a lot of this, even as seamless as I don't have an Apple Watch, but I'm sure that when you get an Apple Watch, the Apple Watch and your phone probably immediately just say, like, oh, hello, we're connected now.
Yes, basically, yeah.
And so there's that issue of, even with that, like we joked earlier, mom and dad don't even leave their phones on most of the time. They don't carry them on their person. Are there any devices that are coming out that are standalone that would have some of these features that might be helpful to somebody who is less inclined to say technology is a good thing for me?
Most of the devices I was finding and I know of all require a computer, or most often your phone. Like, there's some kind of app you have to install on your phone and pair it with and do all that kind of stuff. And in the realm of, if you're semi-tech friendly, you'll get it and you'll be able to set it up. But there is nothing that I was finding that is like, take it out of the box, turn it on, and it just works on its own. And for me, that's the biggest hurdle to overcome. So it's like the rumors around the Apple Watch, and it's not that hard of a stretch, but Apple has, each iteration of the Apple Watch is taking a step closer and closer to independence. Like, you used to have, when you got an iPod, you had to attach it to your Mac to put your music on it. And then the iTunes store removed the computer, and you can put music directly on your iPod and directly onto your iPhone. And so it's like they've slowly became independent devices, and the Apple Watch is moving that direction. So there's going to be a point at which you can buy a cellular Apple Watch, and it won't care if you're an Android user or an iPhone user, because you don't connect it to it in the same way. It's not required.
Right.
And when you get to that point, then you could get one for mom and dad and say, here you go. Let's set it up. Now just charge it every night and put it on your wrist every morning.
Right.
So it's like, it will get to the point where that's possible. But right now, pretty much everything I've seen requires some kind of mobile device or computer to really make it work.
Right.
And that's the same thing for smart homes. Smart homes, it's like the Wild West. It's like, you really have to have somebody that's comfortable in helping you set it up. And so back to that comment, it's like, I've actually had several viewers contact me directly and ask me for help in this exact situation. Like, somebody has a husband that was infirmed, and they wanted to go to, like, when I'm at church at choir practice, I want to be able to check in on my husband to make sure he's okay. And so I worked with her and helped her pick out some really cheap, affordable cameras that she could put around the house so that she could check in very easily. And it worked great. And she's clearly somebody, not like mom and dad, that is somewhat more comfortable setting things up like that.
Right.
And so it kind of makes my heart ache a little bit,
Yeah.
because it's like there's so much of this can help people, but there's still a barrier to entry that I think is still a little too steep for a lot of people.
Yeah. I'm sure the companies that are working on this thing want it to be as easy as possible.
Yes.
And they know that market of people who are not inclined to go out and get the technology for that very reason is larger than the market of people who would go out and quickly pick it up.
Mm-hmm.
So by making things easier, I'm sure they're trying to do that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there are a lot of your viewers and listeners who probably are watching your videos because they are looking for assistance in that way.
Yeah.
They're looking like, I don't know enough, so I'm doing research via YouTube and via Google, and they're finding your channel, and they don't know where to turn yet. So
yeah.
So another comment that caught my eye was from Aussie to you, and just seeing the word Aussie makes me think, quick comment of support to Australia. I'm sure you've got viewers who are in Australia.
Yes.
And the hardship of the fires there is devastating. And I find myself thinking about what's going on there and sending support as much as I can.
Me too.
So,
I had the same for me.
Yeah. So Aussie to you wrote, I completely agree that the tech features are amazing and helpful. I just wish the data harvesting from them wasn't going to be so lucrative as well.
Yeah.
When we use apps to track our Tesla's battery pack over time, the app will project its long-term health and prognosis. That's valuable information for a current owner who might want to sell the battery before the battery degrades too much. It's valuable to Tesla for warranty purposes, as well as to CarMax as it determines what the car's used value is, etc. Our health monitoring should be very private, more so than even HIPAA disclosure laws allow for. Look at the recent Cambridge Analytica fiasco as just an example of where data sharing goes wrong. Who will be forecasting our next medical incident as well as the overall demise? Which insurance company will use your watch data to determine what price your life insurance policy will have? Who will buy your data and then extrapolate new findings privately? Advances potentially unknown and unintended from Apple's intended purposes. Kind of scary territory for our health data. And in a similar vein, user Kafit wrote a much shorter version of the same thing. This is so dystopian. What if someone gets access to this? Or if Apple sells your data? You would be devastated.
I do not disagree with any of that.
Yeah.
My one take would be that I agree, but it's also a very pessimistic view of where this can go. Mm-hmm. And it depends on where you live, but there are a lot of laws already in place that protect our health data pretty well. And it's technically not, like if Apple did that, they'd be breaking the law.
Right.
In the United States, at least. So there are certain protections already in place, but we need more to prevent that slippery slope, sliding down it. So I'm not overly concerned, but it is something that we have to be very aware of and be talking to our politicians, whether it's local or federal or whatever.
That's what I was thinking as well, is it relates very closely with a previous episode we had where it all boils down to knowledge.
Yes.
On the part of the consumers and people being aware of what they're purchasing and what they can expect as far as privacy. And, I am amazed that new people keep signing up for Facebook, given everything that we know about what they are doing with the information that you are feeding into their systems. And it really does boil down to get informed, read the user agreements.
Yes.
And contact your politicians, your legislators, to do things like create user agreements that are easily understood. Yeah, there needs to be policy enforcement around ease of access to information for the user. And one of the ways that they cloud all that is by having a user agreement, which is 17 pages long and written in legalese. So
You also have to look at the companies that you're buying this tech from, because some of these companies that make some motion, step trackers and things like that for exercise, were using the data in very questionable ways. Mm-hmm. And the way they had written their terms and conditions left that open. So it's one of those, you shouldn't just click through the terms and conditions. You should actually read them when you're using anything that's involving your health. And then on the flip side, with something like Apple, if you look at their health kit data and how it's stored and how it's used, Apple actually can't see any of your data because it's encrypted on your device. So even if they wanted to, they couldn't even read it.
Right.
So you want to talk about secure? Apple's actually doing it the right way. They built it from the ground up to be completely locked down, and only you have access to it. And if you give another company access to your health data, that's on you. It's not on Apple.
Right.
So it's one of those, go in knowing how each company handles your data, and if you're not comfortable with them, go with somebody else.
Yeah.
So that's the other side of it.
Yeah. It takes a lot of research. It takes a lot of fighting our own ignorance and vigilance and paying attention to what's happening. So
Yep.
With that being said, there's a lot going on there with how wearable tech is interfacing with our health monitoring, our health issues, both helpful and maybe to some people a little scary. Let us know what you think. If you've got any comments, you can reach out to us on Twitter at stilltbdfm. You can reach out to me directly at by Sean Farrell. You can reach out to Matt at Matt Farrell, and also his YouTube channel, which is at UndecidedMF. Check us out on Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, any place that carries podcasts. And be sure to watch the latest videos from Matt at Undecided with Matt Farrell on YouTube. Find us at stilltbd.fm, and we'll talk to you next time.